What if I told you you could talk to men and get them to give you anything you wanted? What if I also told you this strategy is so powerful, you don't even have to actually ask for anything because before you can, the men will already be offering their services to you. If you want to learn this life-changing strategy, then join me on today's show where we'll be discussing how to talk to men. That way you can become a seductive goddess who has men begging you to make you happy. Well, number one is the translation. You speak English and the man that you're on a date with, let's just say, speaks Spanish, okay? And you're on this date and you're enjoying your time with him. And so in the process of you enjoying this date so much, you ask him a very important question that you want him to take some action on. You say, "Can you kiss me?" And you say this in English. Obviously, you're on a date, let's just say hypothetically. This man that you're on a date with, he doesn't speak a lot of English. He solely speaks Spanish, Espanol. Hola, señorita, ¿cómo estás? Me llamo Tomisin, okay? For those of you that speak Espanol. And so when you say, "Can you kiss me?" in English, he says, "Huh?" No matter how many times you repeat, "Can you kiss me?" No matter how many times you yell and scream, "Can you please kiss me? This is so frustrating. My hoo-ha is drying up." Okay? No matter how many times you try to let him know how you feel, because you're speaking a language that he doesn't speak, this isn't going to work. He's never going to understand how you feel. He's never going to know what you want. And he's never going to know how to take action on your own desires. Okay? Does that make sense? The reason I'm giving you this example is because it's the same thing emotionally in your relationships and how you talk to men. You have to first understand what are the most important things to men and how do they receive information so that when you deliver that information, you actually end up getting the action that you want out of the situation. Because similar in this scenario here, you're asking of him something, an action that you want him to give you and show you. But if he doesn't understand the language that you're speaking, it doesn't matter how you ask or how many times you ask for that thing. So the same thing in your relationships. You might want a guy to give you princess treatment. You might want a guy to take the relationship seriously. You might want a guy to schedule and plan dates. But it doesn't matter if the way that you're communicating with him is not in line with the way that he's going to receive that information, decode that information, and then take action on that information. We want to figure out how can you get the men to understand you by speaking their language. Let's hop into number two. What I want us to imagine here, let's say you have a plate of, let me draw good broccoli here. Good broccoli. So there's broccoli over here. There's broccoli over here. There's broccoli over here. Okay? What I want to kind of help you picture is imagine you have a child and you're trying to get your child to eat his vegetables, okay? And you know that your child really has a disdain for vegetables, especially broccoli. And you know that if you offer your child a plate of broccoli, your child is going to be very upset. Your child's going to cry, scream, kick, and they're going to spill the whole, table over because they're upset that they have to eat broccoli. It's going to be a whole mess, a whole thing that you don't want to deal with, okay? So instead of you just presenting your child a plate of broccoli, right, you figure out that if you were to give your child, let's say, a portion of rice here, and you added some little peas over here, and you added some carrots over here, and you added some chicken over here. Let's put maybe a steak, right? We got a steak over here. And you added some drumsticks of chicken. You guys know my drawing is very bad, right? And you have all of this different stuff here on the plate that he can eat alongside with his vegetables. Now, all of a sudden, you realize that your child is much more likely to finish the vegetables if he can have those vegetables as well alongside with all the other things that he likes. So you get really, really good as an adult in understanding that I can get my child to eat the vegetables if I mix them in with other things that my child enjoys, right? And I kind of sandwich it in between of all these things that he really likes. That way, he'll take it down and we won't have any problems. I don't got to hear him scream. I don't got to deal with any issues, and he'll eat his vegetables. He'll be nice, full, and healthy, okay? So it's like a compromise there. Now, As it relates to the men that you're dating, it's the same idea. What I want from you and I want you to start doing is understanding you're going to attack something very specific, and that is ego. And the way you're going to attack ego is by understanding that for men, there's a certain way in which you can present information and talk to him that will be most impactful to him in terms of getting him to take action on something. And that way is by serving his ego or hitting his ego, depending on what you want here. And understanding that and how to do that properly will always yield you the result you want, because ego matters so much to men. Ego matters so much to men because that is their way of validating themselves, that I am so much better than all the other men, and I am the most mightiest man in all of the land. I'm the biggest, strongest warrior that has ever lived. I'm the king of this kingdom. We're going to talk about that at the end. And you want to understand that this is such an important part of men feeling like men. So when you start to ask for things, or when you begin to talk to men, you want to always be thinking of, how can I either do a service to his ego and get what I want from him, or do a disservice to his ego to teach him a lesson? So let me give you an example. Someone said, give some examples. An example of that would be understanding, okay, if I present myself, let's say I'm going out on a date with a guy, and I know that I want him to really treat me like a princess, and I want him to really take care of me and all that good stuff. I'm going to go on this date, and I'm going to tell him how my last ex-boyfriend took me to Italy. You want to describe to him all the different ways that he has done so much for you. And how now, all these guys, they hit you up, but you never give them the time of day, and you don't really care about dating. You're not really interested in dating too many people because none of the guys have really piqued your interest. Now you're doing something for his ego because you're making him feel like he's accomplishing something by even getting you on a date. And you're making him feel like you're at the tippity top of the upper echelon of women that he could even access. And the fact that he's even sitting here with you on a date is what's making him feel like, oh, wow, that you're really something. In fact, clearly all the other men want you. In fact, clearly men are willing to do the absolute most for you in order to date you. And you only accept the tippity top of the very top. So if I'm with you and I'm on a date with you, then that literally means I'm one of the best men around. I'm one of the most smart, intelligent, amazing men who has ever lived, because if I'm able to get access to you and you don't give access to any sort of bums, well, then that makes me feel like the man. So you see how you end up doing something for his ego, but because you do that for him, he ends up treating you or seeing you as someone who has value, because you're presenting yourself in a way that is valuable. And men, right, their ego, it's a stroker to their ego to realize they're one of the few who get access to something with value. Vice versa, when I always tell you guys that the worst thing you can do is overreact or get super angry or act crazy when a guy disrespects you or mistreats you or is just not putting his best foot forward in the relationship. And the reason I tell you guys to withdraw is because, once again, that's a hit to the ego. It's a hit to the ego because men don't feel important, don't feel like they matter when you ignore them. They don't feel like they're the best thing since sliced bread when after they disrespect you, you treat them as if they don't exist anymore. That's a hit to the ego. So when you understand how ego works and how important it is to men, when you're interacting with them and talking to them, you start to be able to see, right? It starts to become a skill where you're able to see, how can I serve his ego to get what I want from him? Right? Make him feel good, make him feel like the man. And if I don't like what I'm seeing from him, how do I do a disservice to his ego? How do I hurt or hit his ego? Because that's the place where it will matter the most to him, affect him the most, trigger him the most, that will actually inspire some change of action. Number 3 is timing. So let's do the wake up, we'll do the morning, we'll do afternoon, and we'll do night. So what I want to kind of help you picture here, as it relates to timing, is talking to men and getting what you want from them is very possible. But if you're not strategic about how you go about that, you won't get what you want out of the situation. So let's consider a man's regular schedule who works a regular 9 to 5, all right? So let's say he wakes up and from 6 a.m. to, let's say, 9 a.m., he's working out, right? The workout. And at 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., he's working, right? Let's just keep it real basic. In the afternoon, he comes home, he will, let's say, relax and eat. And that, let's say that is from, let's just say 6 to 9 p.m. At the night, obviously he'll sleep, and that will be from, let's just say 11 to 6 a.m. All right. In this scenario, in which this is such a basic schedule that a guy is going through who works an average 9 to 5, timing is important especially when you're thinking about how to get what you want when you're talking and associating and interacting with men. Because at these different times of the day, there will be different stress levels happening, right? With his work or his life or what he's going through. And there will be different responsibilities that he has at these different times of the day. And there will be a different mind state or mind frame that he's in at these different times of the day. So what does that mean for you? If you want to talk to a man and you want to actually get what you want from him, you want something in particular, you have something to ask from him, or you want him to be able to digest something that you feel or an expression or a thought that you have that you really want him to take in and then take some action on or to change, it's probably not the best time to do this when he's wide awake going to his workout first thing in the morning. It's also probably not a good idea to do this right during work when he's stressed out, he's got his boss coming to him, telling him 35 different things and all of these different assignments that he has to do. Okay. And of course, at night, it's the end of the night where he wants to sleep. So when you get really strategic about understanding how to talk to men and get what you want, you figure out that getting him in the afternoon time, right after he is relaxing, right? And very specifically, when he's relaxing after he's had a meal, usually his biggest meal of the entire day, when he's laying on the couch afterwards and he's relaxing after having that big meal and, decompressing from his day. And you realize that that is the time where he's usually the happiest with you, where you'll get the most, smiles from him and cuddles from him and probably just good energy from him. Now, when you talk to him and you interact with him, not that you won't talk to him the entire day, but if you really want him to be a sponge to soak up a problem that you have, an issue that you have, a conversation you want to talk about, and you really want him to be receptive to what you want and what you need, this is the perfect time period to do so. So when you get really good and strategic about presenting things to get men to take action, you realize that being very detailed about the time period in which you present those things will always give you the best opportunity to succeed in getting him to do those things. Because if you tell him the same thing that you were going to tell him at 7 p.m. after he had a meal, but you tell him this at like 11 a.m. when he's in the middle of all the chaos going on at work, yeah, he might hear you, but he doesn't really hear you, meaning he doesn't really take in what your needs are, understand what you're going through, and try and make an effort to fix it. That's not the place where he's like a sponge, where he's the most palatable. And understanding how to give him information when he's the most palatable is one of the keys to you getting what you want from those men, okay? Now, I'll be even more specific if you want a little bit of a pro tip here. I would not advise you to do this right when he comes back home from work, okay? I advise you to do this after he decompresses for like an hour or so. And then when he takes that first meal and he finishes eating that first meal, my advice to you, if you're, really wanting to get into the weeds and the details of this, do it after that first meal, after he decompresses, because that's the most relaxing part of his day, where he'll be the most open to suggestions and issues and problem solving and trying to do and give you what you want and make you happy. Whether that be money, whether that be assurance, reassurance, a conversation, that is probably the best time to do that in the day, where there's the least amount of stress going on, but he still has energy to be able to talk to you. My personal advice to you, okay? Number 4, motivation and fear. Motivation and fear are so important because when you get to know a guy and you get to understand him, you need to know what these motivations of his are and what these fears of his are, because these are the things that you're going to be pulling on or pushing on in order to get results out of him. Let me explain this in a visual. So let's imagine for this particular guy that you're with, right? He has a couple of different motivations here. Let's just say one of those motivations is to make a lot of money. right? And specifically make a lot of money because let's say his family grew up middle class and he wants to be better than what his father was able to give him. And, he wants to live up to this and be able to provide for his family because he never felt like he had enough. Maybe he had a really big family. Okay. Now we can add on to this, right? Let's say for the sake of argument, he also wants to live up to expectations. Let's say for the sake of example, he's the youngest in his family. And because he's the youngest in his family, he always feels that pressure to live up to his older brothers and his older sisters, some of whom are doctors, some of who are lawyers, some own a business. And so there's a lot of subconscious pressure in the process of you having conversation with him that you realize he puts on himself to be his absolute best. And whenever he fails at something or doesn't do well at something, you realize he's very, very hard on himself because he always thinks to himself, if I fail at all, I'm going to be the failure of the family. And as the youngest, I have all the opportunity, all the resources, and I've got to live up to all the other things that all my other brothers and sisters were able to do before me. Okay. Let's add another one here, right? That could matter. And maybe you've heard from men, right? Let's say for the sake of example, his parents have been divorced. And because his parents have been divorced, this has made him fearful of commitment because he's seen how the divorce has affected his parents and broke apart his family. And that process was really painful for him. So he's really scared of getting married to someone because he doesn't know how it's going to end up. And he's scared of the things that could happen and maybe cheating and whatever the case may be, right? And this is one of the fears of his, right? Could also say, let's say for the sake of example, when he was growing up, his mother didn't give him a whole lot of affirmation or his dad didn't give him a whole lot of affirmation that, hey, I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job. You're doing well. And he was always overlooked because he was the youngest in the family and no one ever paid really any attention to him and any accomplishment he did have in his life. His family always overlooked it and never congratulated him on it because he was never the first to do it. And whenever he graduated college, his other brothers and sisters already graduated college from even better universities. Whenever he got his master's, his brothers and sisters already got their masters from even greater places, right? Whenever he got a high-paying job, his brothers and sisters already did that. So the reason I give you all of this and try and give you this example is because this becomes like a web connected to this man. And all of his motivations and his fears become like a fingerprint, which are very unique and specific to him. So what you want to do when you're understanding and growing with men and understanding how to talk to them, you want to take into account what are your motivations and your fears. This is where all of that asking questions comes into play. Because when you're asking very good questions of a man that you're talking to or you're in a relationship with, you'll start to be able to picture and better understand what are all the things that go into your own specific motivations and fears. Now, when you have a really good understanding of that, you can take these individual motivations and fears and figure out, how do I communicate to you? Because remember, at the beginning, we talked about translation and we talked about understanding that what you want to do here is learn how to speak his language. So not only are you learning how to speak the language of the men when you're communicating them through ego and things like that, but you're even more specifically learning how to speak the language of him as an individual by understanding how do these unique experiences that you have manifest themselves in our relationship right now, and how can I either serve those motivations, or if they're a fear, how can I put you in that same fear in order to get you to correct an action or do the right thing? So let me give you an example of what I mean here. Let's just say, for the sake of example, the affirmation things was very serious with his mother and father. He never really got any of the affirmation that he felt he needed as the youngest in the family. Remember, he's the youngest of, let's just say, 3 other kids, right? And because he was the youngest and he never got that affirmation, now you understand, okay, if I really want to motivate him or get him to take a particular action, I've got to make sure I affirm him on the things that I like him doing. right? And the things that I see he's doing a good job on, whether or not they're for me, I know if I continue to affirm him in these areas, he'll feel good about this situation. He'll feel good about himself. And subsequently, because he feels good about himself, he will continue doing good for me. But I have to make sure that I affirm him in the ways that he never got from his mother or his father. Okay? So when you get good at this, you can start putting two and two together and understanding, okay, as I'm hearing your story, I'm seeing a pattern. I'm noticing a theme. And this is something that will happen when you get, remember, I tell you all the time, what you want to be for the men that you date is like a sexy, seductive therapist. And when you get really good, when you get into this bag of being a sexy, seductive therapist, you'll get good at analyzing information and seeing patterns and themes in people's lives and in their experiences. When you start to notice those patterns or themes, that's where you attack. So when you talk to that man or you have conversation with that man, instead of, let's just say there's a situation in which you're unhappy with, right? Instead of you saying, oh, I'm so upset about something that you did to me and it makes me feel horrible and I'm so mad that you would disrespect me and you would call me names like that. Now you know how to frame it in a way that actually speaks his language. So for example, let's say he disrespected you, called you a name outside of your name when you're in an argument. You can say this, look, I've been really, really proud of the way you've been treating me. In fact, I went out and I was telling my friends about how of all, the guys that they date, how different you are from all of those guys. And I was so proud that I was able to have you be the person that I talk about in our relationship because of the way you approach our relationship and the seriousness you bring and how much you care for me. So it was really disappointing for me to see you talk to me like that and hear you talk to me like that when I know how much better than that you are. You see how it's the same thing and you're addressing the same thing, but you're framing it from a standpoint that really speaks to him. Because when you understand that disappointment is something he's faced in his, life and his experience as a child, and affirmations is something he never got, and you subsequently, in the process of explaining to him something that you're upset about, you give him an affirmation of all the good that he was doing and how disappointed you are with the good that he's no longer doing. Now you're speaking a language that he understands. Now you're speaking a very specific language that he's experienced in his life through his motivations or his fears. And now when you present it this way, it takes a whole different type of narrative. Does that make sense in his mind? What you'll learn when you talk in the Players Club about different situations in men, presentation and framing is so important to getting what you want a lot of the times, right? Whether it be in your actions or the way you position yourself or the way you present yourself or the way you tell your own stories or the way you address him. That presentation will either be the difference between you getting what you want or you being frustrated with not getting what you want. Let's hop into point number 5. As I'm drawing my character here, I don't want you to think that I actually want you to be dumb, okay? Because point number 5 is obviously play dumb. You don't actually want to be dumb. But what I want to explain to you here is a concept that's very important to understand as it relates to relationships and getting what you want. You are very smart, and it's great that you're smart. I want you to be smart. I want you to be intelligent. What I also want you to understand, though, is sometimes there is a time and place to play dumb. Hold on. Don't think I'm dissing you. Stay with me because we're going somewhere for you and your benefit. Playing dumb is a strategic thing that you want to do when you talk to men sometimes in order to get what you want. And what I mean by get what you want, see, when you talk to men and you want them to take action on something, you want him to give you princess treatment. You want him to take you out on more dates. You want him to be more consistent with you. You're really not going to get what you want by thinking to yourself, okay, I know the perfect strategy for you to be consistent. You need to ask me out on a date at the beginning of the week so that by the end of the week, I have many different options of times that we can go out, that we can get to the right place and we can do what we need to do. And if you just do it like this, then we'll have it perfect and we won't have to worry about anything. You're really smart. You're really intelligent. You know what to do and you know how to break things down for people to understand, right? You're a boss woman. That's amazing. The problem is though, and I have to be real with you, in the process of overtly outsmarting your man or showing him how much more smarter and intelligent you are than him. What will happen is these men will begin to put up a wall, right? They'll put up a wall in front of you and they won't let you in, right? To their feelings, to their emotions, to what they want, because you are presenting yourself as being so much smarter than them that it begins to make him feel small and emasculated as a man. And so because he feels small and emasculated as a man, he doesn't feel like he's even capable of making a decision for himself. And so this can become something very dangerous, because you know how you go to the gym and you work out your muscles and your muscles get really strong, or you start shooting a basketball and you get really good at shooting a basketball after you practice and practice and practice. And when you're lifting those weights, you start to get better and better form, not only because you're getting stronger, but because of that muscle memory, right? Of being able to do that thing over and over and over again. What happens in your relationships when you play too smart for too long? Your men begin having muscle atrophies. So if you go to the gym, you build muscle, get super strong. But if you don't go to the gym for long enough, that muscle atrophies, which means just gets smaller. And it's the same thing for your emotions and the dynamic in your relationship. Your man will begin to atrophy his muscle memory to be able to take control of situations, think critically for himself. What is the most logical, reasonable, and best decision to make for me and my woman? What does my woman need at this certain point? What are the issues and how can I solve her problems? Those skills that he's supposed to be able to have and develop and grow as a man, he will stop having and developing because you're always so much smarter than him. And both you and him know how much smarter than him you are. But the problem is that doesn't actually serve you. And I'm not telling you to dim your light. I'm not telling you that you should be act stupid in order for people to like you. What I'm telling you is there's a strategy to playing just dumb enough at the right times that you allow your man to magically feel like he came up with the decision that was the smartest and the best for both of you. And because he came up with that bright idea decision, you're so shocked and blown away about the fact that he could put all of these things together and figure out what is best for both of you. But you want to know the sneakiest, most amazing part of that? Is you ended up getting what you wanted in the first place, but you allowed your man to feel like he came up with the bright idea to do those things. So sometimes talking to men is playing dumb enough that you allow them to feel like, oh, I have this bright idea of what we can do or what I can do for you, even though you know that was the obvious thing to do. So let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say, for the sake of example, you're over and sleeping over at his place and he lives in a different town than you. And he's been asking you, hey, I want you to come to this party with this work event with me and my friends. And you're like, great, I would love to come to this work event, but oh man, I don't know what I'm gonna wear. The stuff that I brought, when you were describing to me the work event that you wanted us to go to, I was thinking it was going to be a more casual thing. And I want to look super hot for you. I want them to know you have the hottest girl around because you're the type of boss man that when you go around, they can't be thinking you have no wishy-washy girl. I can't go to this place casual, but I don't know what I can do. The stuff I brought is really casual. I don't have any heels. What am I going to do? I just can't figure out how I could possibly solve this situation where I can look hot for you. Because I want to look hot for you. I really want to look hot for you. I want to wear something that you love. You know how you like my dump truck, right? I want to look something that looks nice and tight on my dump truck, can really show off my curves for you, that I can be looking good for you. But I just don't know how I'm going to do that. And then he says, oh, I've got an amazing idea. There's a mall, literally 10 minutes from my house. We can go to that mall. I can buy you this really amazing red dress, the one that I love on you. It makes you look so good. Something nice and red, or something. Oh, what about leather? What about leather? You like leather? Oh, I can get you in something. We're going to the mall right now. I'm going to get you something nice and leather. You're going to look so amazing. We're going to get you some nice heels. Oh, you're going to look beautiful at this party. Okay, we're going right now. And you see how oh my God. I would have never thought the mall is right there. I didn't even know that we could go to the mall. Is that even a thing that people do? They go to the mall? How would you even? You're such a smart, amazing man. How did I even get lucky enough to be with a man this smart and amazing where you can think of things like this to go to the mall? You're doing things for yourself and you're doing things for him. right? Because this process, right, of strategically playing dumb will bring this wall down, right? You'll bring this wall down because men will feel disarmed being around you, right? This wall will be no more because now the men will begin to feel like I can be a man and I can feel like a man around you. So the same thing when we talked about, oh, the muscle will atrophy if you play smart for too long and make him feel emasculated. It's the same thing where when you just do enough work to present the situation and let him connect those dots, it's like electricity, right? Let him do just enough work to connect those dots and make the decision. I didn't know you could make that decision. That's so smart. Now you're allowing him to build up that strength and that muscle memory of doing critical thinking and giving you what you wanted in the first place, okay? That's why I say this point is not about, oh, you're so dumb, you're so unintelligent that you can't know what you need or know what you want in a relationship or out of a situation. It's about understanding that playing dumb does something for you because it does something for your man, because it does something for his ego. Do you see how it's all working together, okay? Now let's get on to our point number 6. We have the king. And so you got the king who's controlling the kingdom. And in the process of the king controlling the kingdom, of course, the king has to have. So the queen is here, but the queen obviously doesn't control the kingdom because the king is controlling the kingdom. He's telling everyone what to do. He's telling the knights when to march and where to go. He's telling how the messengers should get a message to other kingdoms. He's telling the peasants where they should live and where they shouldn't live. He's controlling that entire kingdom. But if the queen has a problem with one of the knights, what do you think the king does? He takes care of the problem with that knight. If the queen has some sort of issue with one of the peasants daring to disrespect her, the king beheads that peasant immediately. If the queen has any issue with any one of these members in the kingdom or anything that's going on, she talks to the king and the king makes a decision on that issue based on his wife's needs, wants, and desires. Because as the king, even though he controls the castle, he still has a desire to serve his queen and serve her happiness as her man. So the reason I say that is because if the king controls the kingdom, but the queen can control the king's actions through the fact of her desires and her wants and her needs are so important to the king that he will take action on those desires that she has. Well then, if you really think about the hierarchy in that sense, then it really is more like the king is here and the king answers to the queen. Because when you really think about it, if the queen has that much influence over the king, who's really in control of the kingdom? So the reason I say that is because when you get good at understanding how to talk to men and you're really at your most powerful, you understand that real control when it comes to your relationships and the power to get men to do things for you is not in overtly trying to control things from the forefront. It's by controlling things from the shadows and using the fact that when a man desires and wants you, he will have an innate desire to solve your problems, fix your problems, and address things for you because of the fact that he wants you. So if you focus on investing in yourself and being desirable to him, that he comes to you and he says, my lady, I really want to be with you. All you have to do is not even mention the things that you want him to do specifically. You mention the things that you would like the most of anyone you wanted to be with. And because he wants to be with you, he makes that adjustment, not because you told him to make that adjustment. He makes that adjustment because he wants to be who you want. And he wants to be the man that you need. And he wants to live up to the expectations that you have. So reframing that way of thinking and that way of addressing men can drastically change the results that you see. Okay? For example, let's say a guy has been saying that he wants to take you out on a date. He's been calling you, and then all of a sudden he stops calling you and stops asking you out on dates. And it goes by for, let's say, a week. He reaches out to you after a week and he says, look, I just want to let you know that I really want to see you soon, and you don't answer. Then he messages you again, what's wrong? What's going on? Why didn't you answer me? And you still don't answer. Then he calls you and he says, yo, you haven't answered me for the past 2 days. What's going on? And you respond to him and say, oh, I only deal with people who are consistent. Wasn't seeing that from you, so I just move forward. But wait. No, there was an issue here. There was an issue. Oh, okay. It's not my problem. I move forward if I don't see consistency. But okay, but look, I'll make sure that I can make it up to you, and I'll do this thing and I'll do that thing so that I can make sure that I have a schedule that fits yours and I can make sure that we see each other more consistently. Okay. Are you sure? We're good? Sure. Drop. And you see how when you reframe things from the standpoint of, oh, I'm not upset at you. You didn't make me mad. I just exist up here and I deal with people over here. If you're not that, it doesn't bother me. It just means you won't have access to me, which is exactly why you haven't had access to me. And when you frame it like that, and you know that these men want to be with you or have a desire to be with you, now you're putting him in a position where if you want to serve me because you want to be with me, then you'll figure out how to serve me. I'm not going to tell you how to serve me. I'm not going to tell you what you must or must not do. I'm just going to lay out the only type of people I deal with are people who do these things. And the people that I don't deal with, they don't do these things or they don't do these things well. And once it's like that, if you choose to fit into that category, then maybe you'll get some access to me. If you don't choose to fit into that category, then you won't get access to me. But even understanding that on a deeper level and understanding that that is the way you truly control things is by controlling them from the shadows indirectly. And all of these things that you do in the process of having conversation and interacting with men will get them to move and shake things for you without you ever having to lift a finger or beg or scream or yell.